Hello, everyone. Can you hear me and see me? But not see me. It looks like something is wrong with my camera, so I'm just going to refresh and we will try to get started again. Just one moment. Okay, I think we're back now. Sorry about the delay getting started. Better now. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you all for being here. I love it when we get started and the chat box is already full. And I'm back. We're now live. Yes. Oh, wow. Wonderful to see you all here. Thank you for being here. All right. Let me pull up my notes. Tonight, we gather to discuss the Ascended Master and beloved goddess Isis. So thank you for your curiosity about her and using your precious time to learn more about her. She has such incredible and both very modern and very ancient teachings to share. That's why she's one of my favorite guides to work with, because my favorite moments with Isis are those moments that you remember something, the simplicity of something, the way it feels modern and like you've known it forever. So hello, everyone. Ah, wonderful. Okay, I'm going to stay focused on my notes and probably not be checking the chat box as much, because it distracts me a little bit as I'm doing these live. So I'll try to be popping over every once in a while and seeing how everyone's doing, but please introduce yourself to the other priestesses who are attending this live. Maybe we have some men on the call, that'd be wonderful. And I would say if you have any questions for me or anything that's brought up in the content that is presented this evening, please feel free to use the questions and topics section here on Crowdcast. That would be wonderful. And if you're watching the replay on YouTube, please feel free to comment with any thoughts or questions as well. It's a really special evening. Been really buzzing, preparing for this call. So thank you so much for being here. This is such an important spiritual guide and master. I'm so honored to be really representing her in a sense, and bringing some of her teachings. I'd love to kind of start with a little bit of background about Isis and about my relationship with her, just to kind of set the container as we talk about her. She's such a grand figure, and one that is really being resurrected right now. I'm seeing her image and her name pop up all over the place within spiritual communities. So it's really exciting. It's a really exciting time to be on the journey and to work with her as an Ascended Master guide. It really is an exceptional time because we can start piecing. I have felt in working with her that there's a lot of information that has felt like it's been kind of all scattered. And when I work with Isis, it all comes together in a way that makes a lot of sense to me. And so as we go into this spiritual movement, this awakening, this consciousness renaissance that's happening now, she's such a foundational teacher to work with, who can help bring a lot of these teachings together. In my experience, and I'm just gonna, again, all night tonight, this is my personal experience with Isis. There's a lot, she's the goddess of 10,000 names, so there's a lot of different perspectives on her. So I'm bringing forth the Isis that I know personally, and the one that I've been working with for a year. And she's helped me with things from breath work to understanding mysticism. I even see her or feel her in a Kundalini yoga practice, oracle work, spiritual activism, and leadership. She is also really associated with motherhood. And again, and she's known as the goddess with 10,000 names because there are so many aspects of her. She lived for centuries and left a legacy that has withstood, untold amounts of time. So again, just incredibly, incredibly honored to host a meeting in her name, and would like to take a moment to invoke her full presence with us and create a ceremonial space within our hearts to receive more of her history and foundational teachings for the duration of this meeting. So my relationship with Isis began with first, I had not worked with Isis before, or really worked with her energy much. The first time I was ever introduced to her, I was on retreat, and I brought my 3-month-old baby to a women's retreat. And as you can imagine, if you have had a 3-month-old baby, that it was a lot of work. It was really important for me, but at the same time, it was a lot of work. And there was an evening where there was a ceremony happening, a fire ceremony, and I really wanted to attend, but my daughter was being really fussy and just wasn't. She usually would fall asleep so easily, and she just wasn't this time. And earlier that day, I had pulled a goddess card of Isis, and I had never worked with her before, but in that moment with my baby crying, I invoked Isis and I prayed to her. And at that point, I wasn't a person who prayed much. And as soon as I said her name, my baby just kind of relaxed, snuggled in, and in 30 seconds was asleep, and I could step into the ceremony. And that really, and I felt her energy and her presence and I felt the answer to my prayer. And so that was my very first experience with Isis. And then after that, I was working with a healer who saw what she called my Ptolemaic High Council. And this was a council of queens that felt very much like more modern Egyptian queens. So I think like Cleopatra and people, women specifically, and priestesses of the Ptolemaic family lineage. So, and Isis and Hathor, who we are going to talk about next week, very much a presence there. And so, and I put the connection together of that first experience with her. So I started just following my gut feeling to work with her. And as I did, my mind and heart really started opening to so much power and priestesshood that comes with the energy of Isis. And I'd always been drawn towards Egypt, mystery schools, researching the pyramids and the science behind how the pyramids work, which is very much related to her lifetime on the planet. And with many, many more months of research, I started to remember my own past lives and relationship within the lineage of the priestesses of the Isis Hathor lineages. So most priestesses work within a container of a lineage. And we'll talk about how these overlap a little bit tonight and throughout future meetings. This lineage of priestesshood is, to me, a really important part about being a modern priestess is very much about being a self-initiated woman, but it does help to have our spiritual backgrounds and foundations and traditions, I think. Now we're creating new traditions and, of course, modernizing this movement, or at least that's what I am attempting to do. But how many of these lineages, specifically the Order of Magdalena, actually stem from this Isis Hathor priestess lineage. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of that tonight and where some of those overlap. Isis and her twin flame was Osiris. In case you're completely new to working with Isis, I'm sure many of you know this. Her divine masculine counterpart, Osiris. I also very strongly feel Saint Germain as being a divine masculine counterpart to Isis. So within my mystery school container this past week, we had a class very much delivered by Isis, and Saint Germain was there as well. But anyway, her twin flame Osiris, when they were on the planet, they built many temples down the spine of the Nile, which housed many mystery schools and ascension chambers, as well as pyramids that acted as acupressure points on the planet. So acupressure or acupuncture points for Mother Earth herself. And the symbolism of pyramids and their really powerful technology is related to her teachings, her healing chambers, which can be accessed in meditation in those higher planes of consciousness that I broke down last week. So if you watched last week's meeting, I did a quick breakdown of the different densities. As I've worked with her, and it's possible for her to invoke those visionary states where she can take you into those pyramid healing chambers, which were both used for our individual ascension, our individual healing, as well as the community, the planet at large, is what those pyramids were used for. So that's all. I'm not going to get into a lot of the pyramid technology. There's actually a lot of information about that. If you'd like to go down that rabbit hole, I would start specifically for a more modernized version. If you want to look up what Russia is doing with their pyramids, it's actually really fascinating, and the documented science that is behind the power of working with pyramids. It's incredible technology and information that you can access it now. That's the exciting thing about with Isis right now. And when I say right now, I do mean this present moment, but when I think of this lifetime that we're all here, it's so exciting because a lot of these teachings don't need to be hidden anymore. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So Isis mentored with the lineage of Hathor and what has now become the Hathor star nations. You can read more about this if you'd like. I was meditating with the Sophia Code before I got started. If you know me and my work at all, the Sophia Code, it's a required reading to work within the mystery school container that I host. Very powerful transmissions from both Isis and Hathor, as well as connecting the dots between Mary Magdalene and the Order of Magdalena to the Isis Hathor lineage. So a lot of history came forth in this book specifically, and many of the teachings in Tom Kenyon's book, the sex magic of Isis that was channeled through Mary Magdalene, all coming together now, putting all of these pieces with these channeled texts together. It's incredibly exciting. So these teachings that Isis has, and we'll get more into these, because I was able to do some channeling with Isis last week that connected even more dots for me. So I'm really excited tonight to be talking about her because I really feel like her time is here. And it's just incredibly exciting. So let's see. Okay. My own experience so far mentoring with Isis and her Magi teachings, she really prefers to work with students who are pretty tenacious and pretty dedicated. And, you know, I was thinking about, as I was preparing for tonight's meeting, how long I've been working with Isis, and it's with her specifically, and having an altar to her, and working and meditating with her and setting up sacred space with her, it's been about a year. And it wasn't until, this is so exciting that this call is tonight, because it wasn't until Thursday evening that I was able to have a full body channeling of her. And it was so, I think the reason she works this way with us is because I think she really enjoys that moment when you really feel satisfied for how much devotion and how much time you put into working with her, and then she rewards you in very large ways. And I can speak about this from personal experience now, thankfully. And it's so beautiful, because I knew that this topic was going to be tonight on February 6th, and it was just days before that. I'm now able to speak about what her energy really feels like, to embody it and to channel her. So that's really exciting for me personally, and for everyone who's watching. It's really exciting for all of us that she is coming through so strongly now. So it requires a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to step into the grace and the faith. She's not one that I personally think is for the faint of heart to work with, because she's just really capable of stepping into your life in a really powerful way, almost in the same way where, when I was preparing for this, I was getting a bit of that energy of where you want to be careful when you call in Kali Ma, because it's just such a force. It's just such a power that comes into your life and will shake everything up. And I say that because that's been my experience working with Isis. The past year of my life has been both probably the best of times and also the worst of times, because she will come in to help you with these modern day initiations that we go through together. So so that's a bit about my history and my personal relationship, which I feel sets off the tone of this call really well, and felt like I really wanted to share that. But she is certainly capable of helping you step even more into your legacy, onto your divine path. So as I said earlier, my most recent mystery school class was very much directed by Isis. And it was interesting because I felt as if I had to force the content out of my body, because it was very new and it was very straightforward. She made things very black and white for me. And I don't know many others who are stepping into her content and pushing the women in that container. So I share that because I had a lot of fear come up with working with her. So if you start working with Isis and you start to feel overwhelmed is not quite the right word, but if you start to really just feel a lot of power, a lot of new paradigm, visions and things that you think, how am I even resourced for that? That's very much the energy of Isis among many other energies. She's truly a woman, an activist for the planet's consciousness. That was her complete devotion, was living in communion with the planet. And in my opinion, is still her primary objective when she works with us. It's her greatest offering as a mentor, in my opinion, is helping us understand how to use the elements and use the energy of Mother Earth in our reality, bringing that into our reality. So that is what tonight's call is about. That is where Isis, as a priestess of Hathor, that is where she shined very greatly was her ability, her leadership ability to be able to channel Mother Earth consciousness and then bring those teachings up to her priestesses that would really, you know, kind of either write it down or write songs or really just bring those teachings out into the community. So she, in my opinion, is and I grabbed this term from the Sophia Code, an oracle activist. Oracle activism was how she was completely devoted in her service. So she was a master who blended her consciousness with the consciousness of the earth in ceremony. And so that is how she spent her lifetime. In one of her, as far as what I know about her up to this point, one of the greatest accomplishments that she achieved in her lifetime was that prayer for an abundance of more life with a capital L. So she used in ceremony the elements of Mother Earth. She would channel Mother Earth, and the earth would tell her how to use the elements that were already provided, and specifically about the relationship to the death, birth, and rebirth cycles. This is where her Magi teachings were truly impeccable, and where Isis is a master Magi teacher and mentor and high priestess. She tunes the community into the seasons of our cycles, the cycle of life, the Fibonacci sequence, those sacred geometric patterns of the continuing cycle of life, and both the infinity of it and the finite present, this standstill present moment that she can also help you experience in meditation with her. So yeah, and there's so many parallel traditions that after she brought forth these centuries of, she lived for centuries, and after, which is why she had so many aspects to her. She lived on the planet for such a long time. Her teachings were passed down orally for those who were pure in heart. We're going to talk about pureness later. It's a very special word to Isis and her teachings, with me specifically, this teaching of purity, which we'll talk about in a little bit, along with sexuality, purity and sexuality coming together in a way that is very exciting and a new paradigm for how we can look at our sexuality and sensuality. But before I get to that, the exciting thing, I think, one of the exciting things that I've realized as I've been working with her is seeing that so many traditions, so pagan traditions, the Druids, as well as the Native American traditions, she really, if you go back to the teachings of Isis, there's a lot of overlap, isn't there? It's really amazing. She likes us setting up ceremony by calling in the directions. It organizes our ceremony and our ritual, and helps us orient ourselves within the container of our ritual and ceremonies. So she really appreciates the organization of setting up sacred space. And the organization of setting up sacred space is what we call ritual and ceremonies. It's very much about what goes into creating that space for others to enter. So she is a master at creating those containers. So if you are someone who is wanting to work with other women in that way, where you're setting up sacred space for people to come and to be. Isis is just one of the best to work with, along with, I believe, Mary Magdalene, who went to the mystery schools in the lineage of Isis and Hathor. So really beautiful. It's actually, let's talk about that a little bit. The most interesting thing that came through when I was channeling Isis is she explained a lot to me about her relationship to the Order of Magdalena and the Isis Hathor priestess traditions. This is also something that can be read about a bit in the Sophia Code if you're interested in a bit more about that. But as I was channeling Isis, the energy that that came through, I'm trying to think how to organize my thoughts and how to share this, because it was so quantum and multi-layered that it's kind of hard to tell the linear story of it. But as I was channeling her, she very much had me doing this. She was a lot of movement, a lot of Kundalini awakening that she wanted me to feel and to work with. And she very much had me moving my arms up in that way. And as I did, it was almost like a memory of this movement, that Taurus movement that goes around. And I see that we actually had a question about the Schumann Resonance, which I think is interesting that you asked that, Margaret, if you're on the call still, because what Isis was showing me is that and I'm just going to speak to women right now because that's how the information came through. It seemed very specific to those of us who identify as female. Our energy comes up in this motion, right? That Taurus motion. So this energy was coming very much from the root up, very much what the book that Tom Kenyon, I see that came up in the chat box, is very much that experience, that Mary Magdalene, the channeling from Mary Magdalene was very much the experience I was having. And Isis was explaining to me as that movement that comes up, and she kept having me make my hands like this, was very much associated with the chalice mysteries. What's interesting about this, and what really clicked for me, was the insanity of the time that Mary Magdalene was alive and very active in her ministry, and how she needed to conceal these teachings of Isis with such secrecy and symbolism because her teachings were so potent that and so empowering to women that that Mary Magdalene would have been executed if she would have brought her ministry into such a in these specific Isis Magi teachings. She would have been executed, and it was something that Isis was kind of just things clicking for me. So she was so grateful to be working with our generation, and was so grateful to be working with me at that time where we can bring her teachings, her ceremonies forth, and have a more direct and honest conversation on how to achieve these high states of magic, of bliss within this lifetime. So working with quantum reality and living in a time where it's okay for us to it's okay for me to post this conversation online, and I'm not going to be in danger. So yeah, so I know this from personal experience now, which is really exciting to share about. I'm trying to think what else, because I feel like there's more that she wants to share about what was coming through. She very much was working with me and activating within me how it's very much time for us to be bringing our sensuality, our sexuality back into ceremonial space, back to the temple. It's time to bring it back to the temple. while also knowing how pure our sensuality is, how pure our desire to know more of ourselves through our sexuality may be. So as she was working through me, she very much showed me how these ceremonies used to work with women, and the way that we would work with men, and the way we would work with our bodies, and the way that we would be activating that Kundalini awakening, and through pleasure, through orgasm. And what that would do is very much clear the priestess's channel by having that Kundalini awakening. And this was all done with such purity of heart, and knowing that this was such a way to access the divine and access Christ consciousness. And I think I mentioned this last week, maybe I didn't, but it's important to note, to say this again, that when we think about Christed beings, these beings of Christ consciousness, Isis was very much a representative of that, and an embodiment of that Christ consciousness. So when she gave me this experience, this very much Kundalini clearing, activating, sixth density, white light experience, and then came through to say, this is how we would clear our channels and make our hearts really pure. And from that place, we could bring through the energy and the messages from Mother Earth. And the men who would be there would then, be able to hear what their oracle queens were channeling from Mother Earth's consciousness. So it's a really, really exciting time to hear some of these teachings come forth and to see it. We had the perspective from Tom Kenyon's book with the Magdalene manuscripts, but it's really exciting because I think we are now going to be seeing many more oracles who are connecting with this Isis Hathor lineage, who are having rememberings and instructions on how this Kundalini awakening and sex and sensuality and being in that feminine nature and connecting to the core of the earth and bringing that energy up and out. And knowing that that is so pure, and such an act of service to treat your body in that way. So Jessica, I would love to hear about your Isis initiation if you'd like to share about that. So, and let's see, I think I'm gonna just look at the chat box here. Margaret, so the Schumann Resonance is not something I'm not a student of, but just from the little that I know about it, I know that that has to do with the Earth's magnetic field, and very much that torus, that magnetic field around the Earth, is very much the same thing that we have going on from our hearts, the Taurus energy that is our aura and our energy field. So, and just what I experienced with bringing that energy and that Taurus motion that I talked about earlier, and with that chalice coming up and being part of the chalice mysteries with the Order of Magdalena, that's about as much, I think, as I can offer to that. So, but I will be interested to look more into it and see about your question, but that's about the best answer that I can give. Okay, I'm just gonna refer back to my notes really quickly. Okay, so the ceremony I mentioned that Isis showed me with her oracle queens, it was really beautiful. She showed me how the whole evening would be planned, and it was very much, there was so much ritual, so much tradition. So it was almost pretty rigid with the ritual, and with like every step of the evening was very much pre-planned. Everybody kind of knew the schedule. And then what would happen first would be the self-care and the remembering for the women of how beautiful they are and how there is no separation between this physical plane and the spiritual plane. There's no difference. So that's how the evening would begin. And very beautifully, if you follow me on Instagram, what was happening a few nights before this download is Mary Magdalene was telling me a lot about hair ceremonies and about crown chakra ceremonies, and how we would do a lot of braiding of the hair and putting oils in our hair. And this was very much part of leading up to these ceremonies where we would have these Kundalini experiences, clearing our channels, and then being able to be oracles for what wanted to come through from either, it could be Hathor, or it could, Mother Earth, what beings that were being channeled at that time in those temples, and part of the oracle tradition that existed at the time. She also showed me and explained to me that we would wear white linen worn in the temples as a representation of the inherent pureness of our hearts, and was very mindful to remind me it wasn't that we were striving to be perfectly clean, although it was just an inherent part of our ritual, of the ceremony, was very much a lot of cleaning the body, but as a representation that the heart is already pure. So it was about taking this outer temple, purifying it as an act of representation that we already have a pure and perfect heart existing in this present moment, in every future and past moment. This pureness is always there. For the feminine, it's just really about remembering that and not getting too distracted by really any other ways of thinking. So so far with my personal mentorship with her, this is her greatest teaching to me, and her greatest activation that needs to happen before she starts sharing her magic, is that the first step is the total forgiveness and acceptance of who you are now, and the acceptance of your purity now, and the purity of others, and the unconditional love of others. So with that understanding first, is a prerequisite before her alchemic teachings can come in. So this was always the first foundational teaching, was being able to experience this state of Christ consciousness, and then working from there. Then you would kind of, in a sense, move on to a next step of initiation. So let's see, I just want to check in and see if there's anything else to share about that. So I'm going to just take a moment here and take a breath. Get very excited talking about Isis. Isis also is reminding me, I've definitely painted her as very much a powerful, very powerful oracle queen, which she is. There's another aspect of her that is very gentle, very angelic, very, very angelic, which is why we always see statue of her with her wings. With her time on earth, she manifested her angel wings. And so she is both a devoted mother and your biggest fan who cheers you on no matter what. So there is there is a motherly aspect, a devoted mother to her daughters that she is reminding me of now. Okay. This teaching of pureness that came through, she also brought this back in, many of you may have heard the legend of the goddess Maat, M-A-A-T, who held the scale. I believe she held the scales with the feather in one, and then after you passed from your incarnation, it would be your heart in the other, and your heart needed to weigh less, be even more weightless and more pure in weight than a feather. This is very much a mindset from present moment to present moment to present moment to present moment, is always remembering and activating that there is you always have that pure heart. So that legend with Maat was very much about how you lived your life from moment to moment. It wasn't the way that she presented it to me. There's going to be other opinions about this, but the way that she presented it to me was very much, how did you live in the present moment most of the time? That was really what was being measured, was this, was your heart as light as a feather in remembering your sovereign queendom, royalty that you already inherently are. And Isis, the name Isis means throne, and that the word throne, it actually can be read more about in the Sophia Code, the Isis activation that's in there, and the tree of life, the 13 affirmations that she has. We probably, to get into that, would need to be an entirely separate meeting. But if you study Kabbalism, very much influenced by the oral traditions passed down from the times and the teachings of Isis, the tree of life and the teachings of Isis, very much intertwined. So, but for a future meeting, a future topic. So a big takeaway, if you do want to work more with Isis, she really, to be a truly devoted priestess of Isis, what I am personally working on is really a devoted routine, really ornate ritual, really specific things that are being done every Sunday, every Monday, every Tuesday. She appreciates that. It's not required by any means, but when she was talking to me directly, she really made a point to say how it helps us stay in our devotion and in our remembering when we have these routines to go on. So so she gave me some really simple things, like she some of the things that came through with, so when I talk about ritual, they can be very easy. They don't need to be complicated. So one of the things that came through when she was working with me is to have a Sunday shower. And it's a really beautiful self-care shower that I have, where I massage my body with oils and then shower and just really take incredible care of this physical vessel. And then she gave me some morning routines to lean into. Writing routines to lean into. This is something we're really working on in the mystery school container right now, is setting up containers for ourselves. So, which I said at the beginning of this call, she's such a master at setting those, creating space. We don't hold space. We that's not as priestesses. You create the space for people to gather in, and when someone is processing, this is such an important part of why women gather, to talk about our experiences, to sit in circle and kind of, really get our stories out to be seen, to be heard. It's so clearing for us to do that. And Isis loves that, creating those spaces for us to come and create space so that we can clear our space. Very, very much an important part of being women, and gathering as women, and gathering communities of women. So, everything that so far, as of today, what has come through, she's really focused on sisterhood, really for me, and really focused on how we can work together as women. So, so that brings us to about 45 minutes. I am just going to thank Isis for being here with us and continuing to be here with us, and would love to see if there's any other questions that I can take right now. I think I see any. Thank you, Megan. She says, fun fact, wearing all white extends your aura 18 inches. I believe it. Wearing all white was something she was really pushing me towards to try a few times a week. So that's really exciting to hear that. And thank you, Sarah, for referencing those book titles. It is the Magdalene Manuscripts and the Hathor Material by Tom Kenyon. And Samantha says, if we are beginners, is that where you would start us, the Sophia Code and Sex Magic? Yeah, both of those books are really, really fantastic. In the first meeting that we had, I talked about the book Isis Magic, but that's definitely not a beginner book. I would start with the Tom Kenyon material for sure, and the Sophia Code. And actually, I would go Sophia Code and then the Tom Kenyon material. Personally, that's what I would suggest. Okay, completely resonates with what I've been hearing from her this whole last week. Thank you so much for the movement. So potent. You are so welcome, Sarah. Thanks for being here. Okay, everyone. Got a few minutes left. I'd be really happy to take any questions or topics, but I don't see any coming through. I just want to thank you for showing up. This was one of the best attended calls, and I think it's very much because Isis' presence was going to be here. So I'm really excited to continue working with her and hopefully be bringing a lot more from her directly into these meetings. That would be really fun. And yeah, so, okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions or anything, so I'm going to jump off for this evening. I want to thank you for being here. It really meant a lot to me to see all of you here. And I do have some, yes, thank you, Isis. I do have some offerings on my website, as well as working right now on a few free offerings coming up that I'm really excited to share. And yeah, so I'll be sharing more about those coming up in the coming weeks. And I think that I feel complete. Thank you so much. I will see you next week.